The human fascination with gemstones is eternal. The brilliance of sapphires, emeralds, or diamonds has lured emperors across ages, built empires, and simultaneously paved the path to their destruction. In history, many gems are immortalized for their size, shape, and beauty. However, some have earned infamy as companions to the misfortunes of their owners. Whether consciously or unconsciously, many believe these gems to be the root cause of disaster. Consequently, they have been branded with the stigma of being cursed. Among the treasures of the British crown jewels, the Black Prince's ruby stands as a vessel of such mysterious and blood-stained history. Despite being called a ruby by the standards of modern mineralogy, this stone is not a ruby at all. It is a red spinel. 'Tis arguably the world's largest uncut red spinel, weighing approximately 170 carats and measuring about 5 centimeters in length. Currently, it occupies a central position in the imperial state crown of Great Britain. Until the 16th century, humanity did not know how to distinguish between a ruby and a spinel. This confusion persisted because both are red and are often found side by side in mines. Even when the British royal family acquired it permanently around 1637, it was still considered a ruby. Subsequent scientific tests proved it to be a spinel, but by then, the name Black Prince's ruby had been etched into the pages of history. It is said that this stone originated from the Kailal mines of Badakhshan in modern-day Tajikistan. In the Middle Ages, this mine was famous for high-quality red stones. However, its first specific appearance in history occurred in the 14th century. At that time, Abu Said, the Moorish prince of the Kingdom of Granada, was the owner of this gem. During that period, the political situation in Spain was extremely volatile. Don Pedro of Castile, known to history as Pedro the Cruel, was launching continuous attacks on Granada as part of the Reconquest. In 1362, when Abu Said's army was decisively defeated, he went to Don Pedro's court to negotiate a peace treaty. When Abu Said arrived in Castile, adorned in his priceless jewels and ornaments, Pedro's eyes fell upon the massive red stone. Legend has it that instead of negotiating, Pedro chose the path of betrayal. He imprisoned Abu Said and his companions and personally murdered Abu Said, snatching the ruby from his corpse. The first stain of blood touched the gem that day, marking the birth of its cursed reputation. Happiness did not last long in Pedro's life. He lost his throne due to a rebellion led by his illegitimate half-brother, Henry of Trastamara. Forced to flee, Pedro went to the city of Bordeaux in France. Staying there at the time was Edward of Woodstock, the eldest son of King Edward III of England. Famously known as the Black Prince, Edward was one of the greatest military commanders of the Middle Ages. His prowess on the battlefield was legendary, and several theories exist regarding his name. Some say he always wore black armor. Others believe the name came from his cruelty toward prisoners of war. Don Pedro sought Edward's help to regain his throne, promising vast wealth and the famous ruby in return. On April 3, 1367, at the Battle of Najera, Henry was defeated by Edward's superior military tactics, and Pedro was reinstated. But Pedro was a promise breaker. When he failed to pay the costs of the war, a furious Edward demanded the ruby. With no other choice, Pedro handed the stone over to him. Thus, the gem entered the English royal family. The story of the curse began to branch out from this point. Shortly after Edward returned to England, Henry attacked again. This time, Don Pedro was utterly defeated and lost his life at the hands of his half-brother. On the other hand, the invincible hero Edward was not spared either. While in Spain, he contracted a mysterious illness. After being bedridden for 9 years, he died at the age of 46, before he could ever ascend the throne. The gem then passed to his young son, Richard II. Richard II's reign was plagued by rebellion and conspiracy. His relative, Henry Bolingbroke, overthrew him and threw him into prison. It is said that he was starved to death in the impenetrable Pontefract Castle. Henry Bolingbroke, Henry IV, established the Lancastrian dynasty, and the ruby came into his possession. After he died following a long illness, his son, Henry V, became king. Henry V was exceptionally brave and fixed this ruby onto his battle helmet as a symbol of his prowess. On October 25, 1415, the famous Battle of Agincourt took place in northern France. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Henry adopted an aggressive strategy. At one point, the French prince, the Duke of Alençon, directly charged Henry. A blow from the Duke's battle axe nearly shattered Henry's helmet, and the ruby almost flew off. Miraculously, Henry survived and won an incredible victory. It is said that after the battle, an English soldier recovered the pieces of the shattered helmet from the dust and returned the ruby to the king. Henry began to see the stone as a symbol of good fortune, despite its bloody past. In the 16th century, the Tudors took control of England. Queen Elizabeth I reportedly considered gifting the ruby to her cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots, though Mary never received it. However, many believe the shadow of the ruby touched Mary's life anyway. Mary was eventually beheaded after being accused of conspiracy. Later, during the reign of King Charles I, the English Civil War broke out. Charles was defeated by the parliamentary forces led by Oliver Cromwell. In 1649, Charles was publicly executed. Cromwell ordered all royal jewels to be sold or melted down. Fortunately, the Black Prince's ruby was purchased for a very small sum by an anonymous buyer. When the monarchy was restored in 1660, Charles II took the throne. He repurchased the stone and set it in the new crown. However, his successor, James II, was also forced to flee into exile just 3 years into his reign. In the 18th and 19th centuries, while talk of the curse diminished, the gem's importance did not. In 1841, a massive fire broke out at the Tower of London. As flames threatened the Jewel House, Police Inspector Pierce risked his life to break the iron bars and save the treasures. During World War II, when Nazi Germany was relentlessly bombing London, the crown was hidden in a secret tunnel deep beneath Windsor Castle. Today, the Black Prince's ruby remains under heavy security in the Tower of London. Is the trail of death associated with the Black Prince's ruby merely a coincidence? Historians suggest that monarchy in the Middle Ages was inherently tied to conspiracy, war, and power struggles. Those who owned this ruby were all powerful rulers, and powerful rulers have many enemies. Therefore, it is more logical to view their downfall or untimely deaths as results of political circumstances. However, the imaginative human mind does not always follow logic. Thus, the red stone stained with the blood of Abu Said still evokes a sense of mystery. It is this blend of beauty and danger that has made the Black Prince's ruby one of the most thrilling gems in world history. Even today, when tourists gaze at this crimson stone through the glass casing in the Tower of London, they do not just see an ancient mineral. They see a silent witness to 1,000 years of betrayal, heroism, and tragedy. Thanks for watching.